Toastmasters. It's been a great pleasure today to be able to introduce a special guest at our meeting. Have you ever heard of John Scherer? Have you?
No. Yes.
Yes, of course. So most of you know, yes, who this gentleman is and why it'll be so great to be able to listen to him today. Okay. I suppose I don't have enough time to tell you about everything that he's done in his life because the list is just endless, yes. John has studied history, philosophy. Once he decided to join US Navy. Then again he decided to become a priest, yes. And then John again decided that it's not enough for him and maybe he should do a little bit of more behavioral psychology. So then he received, I think, PhD in behavioral psychology, yes? Oh, yes. Ladies and gentlemen, this is just an outstanding personality, a man who's been sharing his experience across the countries, and he decided to also introduce a little bit of his theories and knowledge to Polish listeners and Polish companies that he's cooperating closely with. One of them is Pathways Kraków, and
Pathways Polska.
Pathways Polska, oh, I'm stupid.
Old country.
Anyway, remember the name Pathways, okay. John, the man who's teaching people how to face their tigers. Okay, this is important. Now I'm facing my tiger standing in front of Paul here. Yes. John, who's the man who's facilitator of positive change, will tell you today about changes. Let's welcome John Scherer.
I'm going to talk about this a little later, but here's the cover. There is actually a book. When I was 10 years old, I found out that I was a stutterer. So po polsku? Stutterer?
Yes.
How do you say it?
Yeah.
First of all, witam państwo. Przepraszam, jestem Amerykanin. Nie mówię polsku. Rozumiem troszkę. So, gotowi? Jedziemy. Okay, we'll go. I was a stutterer. I was so afraid of answering the telephone that when the phone rang, I would pretend that it did not ring. Every stutterer has certain sounds that are very difficult for them. My sound, where's the counter? My sounds were the p, k, t, d, the attacking sounds. They call labial dentals, the attacking sounds. And I went into the Navy, and in their infinite wisdom, the Navy decided to make me an air controller. So I spent all day, every day, on the radio, talking to jet planes and helicopters and people on the radio. When I reported to my ship, I asked the guy next to me, what is our call sign? Now, the hard sounds for me to remember, so I probably said, what are our call signs? Because a stutterer never starts a sentence, without worrying about stuttering. So I might get all the way through a sentence without stuttering, but at the end of the sentence it was like, oh, thank God I didn't stutter. So you're always stuttering, even if you're not actually stuttering. That's the concept. So I got on my ship and I said, what's our call sign? I had little tricks that I would use to get the air moving across my lungs. I would cough, or I'd go, or make a sound, just to get the air moving across my lungs, and then I would say the difficult sound. So, what's our call sign? And they said, hermit. And I went, thank you, God, thank you. Because hermit, I could say, no problem. Now, we end up working with the USS Enterprise, this big aircraft carrier, biggest ship in the Navy. And her call sign was climax. Oh my God. It was like, I mean, it just stuck in my throat. Every time I have to say climax, it was just very, very difficult. And one night, we were out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And in the middle of the night, I'm on duty, and I get this call on the radio. on the CI net. And this voice says, "Hermit, this is Climax himself." Over. Now, if you understand military radio talk, that means it's the captain of the USS Enterprise on the other end of this radio. He's the highest ranking naval officer in the United States Navy with the command of a ship. He's got 4 of these and a whole bunch of these. I got 1 of these and a name tag. And here's the captain of the Enterprise talking to John Scherer, the stutterer, in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean in the middle of the night. "Hermit, this is Climax himself. We just lost a Foxtrot 4, F4, it was a Phantom jet. We just lost a Phantom jet out your way. Grid coordinates," he gave me the coordinates of the last known position of the jet. He said, "I hereby designate you Sierra Alpha Romeo, the search and rescue coordinator." He said, "Go find our boys, Hermit." Roger, out. And I called the captain on the 1MC, and the captain and the executive officer came. I'm right out of school, right out of air control school. I mean, I'm scared to death. And the captain says, "Mr. Scherer, can you do this?" Now, there's only one right answer to that question. That's not the time to go, "I'm a stutterer, I can't do this, I'm a stutterer." I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Great." He goes up, goes back to sleep. He's probably lying in his bunk going, "Please, God, let this guy do his job." And so I'm now on the radio, and all of a sudden, Climax launches all of her airplanes. And I'm sitting, the destroyer, I'm on a destroyer, right? So it's going like this. And I've got my legs wrapped around the radar scope. I got my headphones on. I got my little grease pencil. And I got my little thing going here. And I'm looking at the scope. And all of a sudden, all these airplanes start moving right toward the middle of my scope. I was taught in school you were never going to have to control more than 3 airplanes at one time. You got to think about it. These guys are going 500 knots, 700 miles an hour. You know, and they're going around and around and around, and I'm supposed to be doing something with them and keep them from hitting each other and trying to find the 2 guys in the water out there. Now, I drew a square on my radar scope, and here they come. Climax, this is Hermit. This is Climax 2-3. I've got 2-4 and 2-5 request instructions over. Roger, Climax 2-3. This is Hermit. Take Angels 1.5. Steer 230. Da 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 da. And then Hermit, this is Climax 5-0. I got 5-6 and 5-7. I mean, just boom, 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 boom. 15, 20 airplanes. And I have to stack them up, and I have them in this huge expanding square. It's called expanding square search, where you go out like this, trying to keep them from hitting each other and looking for these 2 guys in the water. I was on the scope for 20 hours. And there's another, oh God, that's amazing. I didn't even have to stutter that long. And after 2 hours or 3 hours in the middle of this, I had the realization that for the first time that I could remember, not only had I not stuttered, but what? I hadn't even thought about it. The thought of stuttering was never even in my mind. And I realized this because there's 2 guys in the water out there, John, that are going to die if you don't get over yourself. Just get over yourself. This is not a time for your neurotic, stuff. If the Navy wanted you to stutter, they would have trained you how. This is not a time for stuttering. This is a time to get those 2 guys in the water. And after 20 hours,